Hello, Radu. Welcome to this conversation space for the Gijón Film Festival. Thank you very much for being with us. We are very happy to talk to you and to show your last long feature film, Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn, and then a selection of your short films. We are very happy to show them. And also thank you for letting us play many of your films in the past years. We are great followers of your work, and thank you a lot.
Well, I have to thank you and to apologize that I'm not able to do the trip this year for a lot of reasons. And I must say that it is a festival which has rings a bell for me since I heard about it, I think many years ago, because some Romanian films from the 60s, I think, were screened or even awarded there, if I'm not mistaken. So it was a festival important somehow for Romanians, and also and it's not something. I appreciate your work as a programmer, and I appreciate your taste. So for me, it's really an honor to be a part of that. Not to mention that I have very friendly feelings towards you and the team and the festival itself. So, and you invite also another friend of mine this year, which is Roger Koza. So I'm twice said that I'm not able to attend the festival.
Okay, we'll try to fix that in the following years.
Absolutely.
And I will go with the first question. You started your career making fiction films, and your film "The Thief with a Hat" was shown here in Spain in the official competition many years ago. It was the first film that you made that I saw as a spectator by that time. I liked it a lot. It's one of my favorite short films, if I have to choose a few. And but since maybe in 2017, you presented The Dead Nation, and you started to work more with archive and non-fiction. Why did you decide to follow this path, and to after making a lot of fiction films? Of course, I haven't mentioned them. Why do you choose to put more things?
It came. I might use a word which is not fit for our job. I would say it came naturally, but of course it's nothing natural into that. What can I say is the fact that I was always interested in doing the research for the films. I did a lot of research myself for the films, and starting with Aferim, actually, the interest in archive of all kinds of images especially became greater. But first, it was like a research tool mostly. It was a way to somehow find a way to research the projects, to find things that I can use for my feature film projects, which were dealing with history actually at some point more and more. So in a certain moment, I decided, because a corpus of these documents of photographs and other things became elements that I studied for, as I said, as a research. But at some point I said, well, some of these things are so big and so important that maybe I can make out of this research, turn them also into another type of film. For instance, The Dead Nation, which is my first essay film, so to speak, a non-fictional film like that, was made because I used that period, that images, that text. I used them as research for two other films, Scarred Hearts and I Do Not Care If We Go Down in History as Barbarians, directing prize in Gijón 2 years ago.
Yeah, proudly.
Yeah, I think it came from that, and then it was also a time because of the development of the internet, where I discovered this, let's say, this continent of found footage and archive footage filmmaking, which is not very well known by me, at least in Romania, and it was difficult to find the films. But all of a sudden, in the last, let's say, 10 years, with the development of the internet, you can discover more and more. and I didn't know that it's such a big continent actually of cinema. You in Spain even have a magazine, you know, found footage magazine made by Cesar Ustaros, I think. So yeah, so it's a lot of all these things came together. The finding of this type of films, which somehow got together with my research time, my research work for the other project, and this is how I started. Because you say documentaries, but actually they are more like essay films. I never made proper documentaries like that. I'm not sure I'm able to do that.
Yeah. For me, it reminds me a little bit what happened with Roberto Rossellini when he decided to start making this kind of more didactic films. I find kind of a humanistic enlightening for the films. Do you feel that there is kind of a connection with him or other filmmakers that have come this way of making non-fiction films after a first period of making fiction films?
Oh, I never thought of that, but of course, Rossellini is a great maestro, great model, really for everything. By the way, if anybody has that book of Rossellini that I cannot find anywhere on the internet, which is called My Method, I would be very, very happy to read it and to pay for it. There's something else which I didn't mention here, that at some point, and it seems that it was the case with Rossellini, I think after a few years of working and of trying to make, you know, proper film, so to speak, you might become tired of all that. And I think in case of Rossellini, it was like that. I think he was tired of making feature films, and all of a sudden he turned to television or to making, you know, this, as you say, the scholar essayistical didactic films, the life of Jesus or of Socrates, or documentaries in India or who knows where. I think it came in his case from, I think he was fed up with cinema a little bit, and while I didn't make as much as, and of course not all of my films is as important as Rossellini's films, but at some point you feel a little bit tired, let's say not of cinema itself, but of the way of financing the cinema projects, the way things are organized in the industry. So all of a sudden you can say, well, fuck all that, maybe I can make a small film with a montage of photographs, or I can make an essay film putting together 2 or 3 images like that, or and I must say it is liberating in a way. It's liberating, of course, but it's liberating, and now it's in 2 different directions, because everybody can do such a film. We are doing a film like that now. You know, we can make with the technology today. Everybody can make a film with his or her phone camera. But what do you do with it after that? You put it on YouTube and it gets lost, or on Facebook. I don't know. So it's a complicated thing with cinema today. It's a crisis, but I think it's good that it is in a crisis in a way.
Mm-hmm. And you also dare to do something that I think is very meaningful, that you still make a lot of short films after making. I mean, for you, making short films is not a way of getting into to making feature films, but you still, I mean, it's the same corpus, if I can say that. And also you don't dare to make a film, like 3 hours film, like the one we saw last year, The Exit of the Trains, with a lot of still photographs, which is a very risky decision. And do you think there is a kind of dictatorship of the length maybe in the cinema world? Because I mean, it's something that you have to put a lot of effort in order to get to make films of maybe a very short film or a long film, and you have to. I mean, maybe some people is telling you, okay, this should be shorter, and I mean, yeah, there is a lot of pressure maybe into that.
I think it's mixed here. I think it's not necessarily the industry. I think here is the filmmakers mostly. The filmmakers that for reasons that it's up to everybody, decide that after making one or two short films, they can express better things in feature length. And, in order to be well known in the industry, and everybody wants that, and to be successful, and we all want to be successful, you must make feature films, because you cannot be successful making short films in the long run. But I think on the other hand, this makes that short films, at least because there's no this pressure and this money put on them, at least the freedom you can have is much bigger. Even I'm now in a studio where I'm working on two other short films I'm finishing now, and it's nobody's interfering with me, not even having an opinion, saying, oh my God, but will this work, will this not work, because nobody expects anything from them in a way. There's no sales agent who can say, we want to sell this film, so change the title, or please do this, or please do that. So one is a silent film, one is a film of montage with photographs, again, a 30 minutes film. And I decided to keep it completely silent, like a silent movie, no music, no sound, nothing. And of course, for a feature film to do it like that, it would be very hard to convince anybody to accept that.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the bad luck banging or loony porn more precisely. I think I want to ask you about the structure of the film. We've seen many films like divided in two, like I can say Sud Pralat by Apichapo Merasetakul and many others, that there is a friction between two parts. In your case, it's three parts. I don't know if you thought about that from the beginning, or you just maybe had the parts and then you put them together and mix them, instead of mixing them. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I think it was in both ways, because the first idea was to make a more traditional film, to be organized in a more traditional manner, so to speak. But then I somehow discovered that it was not the story itself that was interesting, but what was around the story. So I needed another form. I needed a new form to tell this, to make this film, and not concentrate only on the story of the teacher with the tape and with the problems she faces in school. So and then I went back and forth with many ideas. How should I reorganize the film? How can I organize it? How can I make it? And all of a sudden, after I saw some exhibition of Cubist painting, I was in France mixing the sound of Barbarians, of my other film, and I said, well, maybe the answer would be to make a film like a Cubist painting in a way. So to make a film where the parts are not put together in a realistical, figurative way, but exploded on the canvas like in Cubist painting. So I said, okay, maybe I can make then broke the film in a few parts, in three parts. It was three, but only because this is how it's structured. It could have been two, or it could have been 5 or 7 or 6, whatever. I didn't want to be 3. This is how it all came about, from this desire to make it, to break it, and not to concentrate only on the narration. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I'm interested more and more in montage, which is not to be understood as only the putting together of the images in order to have a story, but more like Eisenstein or Godard used it or theorized it, a kind of putting together images in order to create new ideas, in order to make comparisons, in order to make associations, or to break the story, even to not construct the story but to break it. So yeah, so all these ideas of montage, which you can find not only in cinema, you can find a structure like that, for instance, in a novel like the USA trilogy of John Dos Passos, And Dos Passos has a kind of made a film where wrote a book where you have narration, you have then a chapter which is biographies of real characters, historical from that time. Then you can have interior monologue, and then you have found text. You have news reports taken from newspapers, exactly like that. So that's a montage book in a way, you know. So I think it's an old technique, but a little bit less used in cinema nowadays.
Yeah, now I'm gonna make like also like a friction exercise, telling you my kind of interpretations of each of the parts, or at least for the first part, because when I saw it, I mean, a lot of times I thought about that you were shooting, I mean, the first part of the film, that you were shooting like the rest of the ruins of the Western civilization everywhere, and then you focus in some details that tell us like things about the absurd around, and things that we don't notice when we go out on the streets. But then if you focus in something, you can get a lot of inputs of things that really make kind of nonsense. It reminds me a little bit to Antonioni, to films like The Passenger, that sometimes he's focusing on something on the wall, or different elements, non-narrative elements. I don't know if it was the intention for this first part, I mean, or one of the intentions, maybe.
It's interesting. I think somebody else mentioned this Antonioni film, which I don't remember very well because I saw it more than 25 years ago, I think, and yeah, I saw it in a VHS copy in the Romanian Cinematheque. I remember, of course, the famous shot at the ending of the film, but I don't remember those things that you mentioned. But of course, what you said is completely true. That was the intention behind that, or that was one of the intentions, because there's always more. I think there's the intention to somehow, how should I say, the intention to find in the tissue of the city, framed by camera, so by this tool with a longer lens than the eye, because I wanted to see things that you cannot see with the eye. So I using all these things in order to see in the tissue of the reality of the city what's behind a little bit, to try and see in these ruins or in this mess, because it's not always ruins, to see, yeah, what kind of civilization is the one who makes these kind of things, you know. And because Bucharest is so chaotic and so complex in a way which is very bad for living in it, but good for cinema. It makes it very cinematic in a way, very rich from this point of view, because it exposes itself a lot. That part was easier to do. You know, we met 1 month ago. We met in San Sebastian, and a film like that couldn't be made in San Sebastian because that's such a neat and organized city and so clean in a way, and full of nature, that it's. But on the other hand, then you go and I was giving an interview in the Hotel Maria Cristina, and said to someone from the television, Spanish television, I don't remember which one, and they said, why do you make this part like that? And I said, well, I'm also interested in history, and in that part you can see traces of history everywhere. And then I just looked at the hotel and in San Sebastian, and it was full of bullets, you know, bullet hole from the Civil War, actually. So, you know, even in San Sebastian, then I said, well, maybe if I would have made the film here, I would have pointed the camera to the traces of these bullets.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I remember that Jean-Luc Godard said that if you film a wall, then you can get some stories just filming a wall. I mean, it's it's more or less
Yes.
a bit of that. I mean, this.
Godard at some point wanted to make a film like that. He said to film a wall.
Yeah, like to film a wall. Yeah.
Yes, and to say it and to try to see, to speculate what you see. So I'm thinking to make a film, to make that a film.
About the wall. Yeah.
Yes.
You start to watch a wall, and then you start to see more things than just.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I will probably maybe I will do it.
Yeah, that will be great. And as for the central part, my idea of it is like the humus for the both episodes, like kind of to make a comparison. It will be for me like the 8th episode of the new Twin Peaks season by David Lynch, which is kind of like something which generates. Both stories, the first one and the last one, is like the kind of noisy chaos where ideas come from, like in a Platonic way. I mean, something like that. I don't know, because it's like a mix of, very different things. Some of them disturbing, some of them more like thoughtful. So something that's, I don't know. That is the term for the friction. That's it.
No. It's I think that the film. Now I realize, speaking with you, because you say I think it means that or it means the other things. I think it's quite, which was also another inspiration, is the book of Umberto Eco called Opera Aperta, the open opera, the open work, and it's not an open work not necessarily by the definition of Umberto Eco. It's still quite open to interpretation, and you say, and it's true that is like the humus of the first and the third part in a way. Yes, it's that. Then it's also, I think, a way of dealing with cinema, not in a pure way, not trying to find the pureness of cinema language, but on the contrary, to create a mess with citations, quotations, literary quotations or philosophical quotations, images of any kind, which some are nice, some are ugly, some are low resolution, some are high resolution. So it's some are archives, some are photographs, some are paintings. It's a lot of mess there put together in a way to make cinema more than the sum of its parts, and to make it like, to see it, I'm using this metaphor maybe a little bit too obvious somehow. I thought that the film, and actually cinema, I see it like a sea, like an ocean, and all the rivers comes into it and they become the ocean. When you have literature and you put a quotation on the screen and together with a photograph, it's not photograph and it's not text, they become cinema in a way, So that was the idea, also to play a little bit, to investigate a little bit in expanding a little bit the possibilities of cinema, at least for what I have done until now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I really like that the film doesn't use this kind of purity. I mean, it dares to use images that are considered not pure, and I think it's very, very positive for the film, and it's very like that you show a lot of intention doing that. And then in the ending, I was thinking about a little bit. I mean, about what can be the social networks today, and this kind of discussions. For me, could be like a Twitter thread with people telling ideas, very short sentences, which is like the death of reason somehow, and the way they can destroy easily a person, with this, saying things when they really don't know anything about what they're talking about. That's what I thought.
It's true. It's a very interesting observation. I think I model it more on Facebook accounts than on Twitter. I don't think Twitter is so violent and so, or maybe it is because I don't follow Twitter. I follow more Facebook, so I know more what's on Facebook than what's on Twitter. But yes, and it's true that in a way the third part is also a caricature, and I always quote Picasso, your Picasso, saying that because he liked caricatures a lot, and he said that a caricature is not realistical but is truthful. So yeah, for me that's a very important idea, that you can put together things in a caricature way, which is sometimes criticized. It's a mix of ludic and of serious in a way. Buñuel used to do that, and Buñuel is of course a model. And yes, actually, and then the interactions. Some of the texts itself are taken from Facebook discussions, or yes. So yes, it's modeled. It's the visual counterpoint of a Facebook fight or a Facebook. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the short films that we're going to show. The first one is Punish and Discipline, and just I mean a few words about this figure, Colonel Lausteano. Sorry. Lacusteano, sorry, yeah. I cannot read it properly. What can you tell us about? I mean, what did you choose this text, and then the photographs, which are very, very, very. I mean, they are very. They speak. They tell a lot, but also they hide a lot. I mean, it's very. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Actually, this short film. It's very simple. It's about power and self-representation of power, of political power, of military power, or police power. I don't know. And one is in a text version, and the other is in a image, in a photograph. The Colonel Ion Lacusteanu was actually a less interesting character, maybe from a military point of view, but he wrote. And at some point in the 30s, when his memories were discovered, there were some writers that said, "Wow, but this is a great, very expressive literature." He didn't write it for literature reasons. He wrote it just like that, to complain. He was always complaining about something. He was greedy, he was ambitious, and full of himself. So it remained like this kind of confession of this obsession with what power means, what military power of the police. At the beginning, it was the beginning of the military state, of the military institutions in Romania, because it was after 100 years of more, when the Romanian countries didn't have army, since it was under the control of Ottoman Empire. And the second corpus of images is of a small policeman from communist dictatorship times, from a village, and apparently he was taking his portrait or his photograph by a photographer for many years. So it remained to us his life recorded in this corpus of photographs. But also you can see how he liked to appear himself with the power symbols of his job, like the guns, the uniform, the dog, the postures. So I think it's an interesting film. I hope I'm sure it's interesting because of materials themselves are interesting. I hope the film is interesting for this kind of show of self-representation, self-mise en scène of power, so to speak.
Yeah, I totally agree. About the Fable, the next one, which is a home movie that you did for the Thessalonica Film Festival. With your son, and I guess the drawings that are in the film are also made by your son.
Yes, it's like all kids, he's very talented. You know, it's it's a short film made during the lockdown, and I wanted to work. Now I don't think it's a great idea. It's a nice, I think, a nice fable in it, which is told, taken from an ancient, quite ancient story of Avicenna, of the famous inventor, right, of medicine in a way, but also of modern medicine at least, but also it appears in a novel, a kind of novel. It's a corpus. It's a very weird book. I always wanted to adapt, to find a way in cinema, and I didn't find. But in all my films, there is parts coming from this book. So I'm thinking that maybe this is a way to adapt the book by one scene in every film, and in the end, I take them and put them together. Yeah.
No, it's a really nice short film. Yeah. And then you have, we're going to show Caricaturana, where you use these lithographs from a French artist. And then at one point, I'm trying not to spoil it, but at one point there is a kind of news from the new, I don't know how to call it, fake news or stupid news, because we cannot notice the difference, but it's kind of things from the present going and interacting with the Kuleshov method. Yeah. And where did you get the idea? Because for this film, I thought on Godard again, and I thought about Letter to Jane, in a kind of maybe you see this news that appear in the end, and then you start thinking what will happen with this if we juxtapose this with this other material from another era.
Oh, it's much less than Letter to Jane of Godard and Goran. But actually, you asked what the idea comes from, but it is not my idea. It's an idea that I found in an Eisenstein book, and I'm interested a lot in Eisenstein, not only in his films, but in his thinking. He really was somebody who was working and thinking all the time. It's amazing. In Non-Indifferent Nature, which is this book, has an essay about Piranesi, the drawer, the guy who drew, these prisons, like fantastic prisons in Italy. It has an essay on El Greco. This book has an essay on the literature of Zola. So it's a lot of things that Eisenstein was able to work on and to reflect on, and always using cinema thinking as a kind of frame of thinking, of a frame of analysis. So so I took the idea of Eisenstein. I tried to organize it like I had the feeling he wanted to, and then I did my own interpretation or my own play with his idea or around his idea. It's not much, but I really think it's interesting, because you asked me why make short films, but if I wouldn't have made this short film, this idea of Eisenstein probably would never have been expressed or tried to be expressed in a way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great. And now for the semiotic plastic, which is the last one we were going to show. You film plastic toys. I mean, it's and you build some scenes. I mean, it's like kind of a fiction film, I guess. I mean, I will call it fiction film with plastic, with toys and so. And it looks like it could be like a family type kind of film in the beginning, but then you get to have some disturbing kind of, in my point of view, disturbing elements, like scenes of rape, or what looks like a rape scenes, and this kind of violent scenes, which is there's taking into account that you're using toys for kids. There is something disturbing there. How did you choose the scenes? And I mean, tell us a little bit about the way the film is built.
Yes, there is this element on destroying the innocence of the toys and dirty them a little bit and transform them into something dirty. But it's about the potentialities of them. It's about the fact that this potential, it is in them, and sometimes kids are using them in this way. So it's not a very inaccurate way of using. Of course, it's a little bit of perversion from our part. as adults to do that. And it's I always say it's my revenge against my kids for having to buy so many toys and play with them and put my feet into them in the house all the time. I have 2 kids. One is 17, one is 6. So I was around toys since 17 years from now already, and I cannot stand them anymore. But on the other hand, because this is how the film started, it's this idea that you start to look at the objects like that. You start to see in them not only these potentialities, which I mentioned, or other ways to use them maybe against their purpose. But also, it's the same like in Caricaturana or in the other films. It's an archive. It's an archive of objects in this case. It's an archive of image objects, because toys have the image, the way they look is an important part of these objects. And then, and then it's a very cinema. I call it a cinema gesture, because to shoot them, and we shot them, me and Marius Panduru, the DOP, we shot them with many lenses, macro lenses. So you have a small toy like that, which becomes huge on the screen, and and that's it. That's really for me the definition of cinema. One of the definitions of cinema. One of the possibilities of cinema, when you take an object like that and you put it on the screen, on a big screen, you transform something small, like when you look in the microscope, and you see it on a big canvas, on a big screen, and all of a sudden you can start analyzing it, seeing the details that you don't see with the eye.
Yeah, and I mean the images are great, and the textures are I mean, when you are so close to it with these wonderful lenses, the textures become like I mean beautiful. I mean beautiful and terrible in other cases, but they're also, I mean, a bit frightening, even frightening. And just for the last,
and also it's about the materiality. It's in a way trying to focus on the materiality of this object.
Yeah. Which around us all the time, and we don't look at them. I mean kids too, but we don't. So yeah, it's very interesting. And let's go for the last question. It is related with the role that politics play in your films. And I mean, it's like a general question about how do you think cinema can help or can do what can do in order to to have a role in getting to fix this political situation that we have in Europe. I'm talking about fascism or I mean radical these movements, political movements that are trying to kill reason and to go back to this kind of barbarians that you have used in one of the titles of your films.
Yeah. You know, of course, it's a very, very complex and impossible question in a way.
Yeah, I know.
My answer, I found, no, I put these questions to myself all the time. You know, what's the use? Why make these films? Because if somebody makes a love story, or I don't know, a film about psychology, or a metaphysical film about being old or loneliness, I don't know. Nobody asks them this question. But if you make a film like I did, people say, well, so does it have any meaning? Does it have any use? And first of all, I think it's wrong to assume that a film can change things like that. But then I somehow I found the answer in a book of a great, in my opinion, a great film critic and film theorist called Gilberto Perez. The book is called The Material Ghost: Film and Its Mediums, or Medium. And Perez says at some point that, well, of course, art cannot change society, films cannot change society, but at least they can show what we need to change, or what are the values we need to defend in a way. And I think, well, it's not much, but at least this is a part of of the power of cinema. A small soft power that cinema has is to show us the problems, to show us the world, to show us what's there to change in a way. But the films cannot change anything. They are too, and in a way, I wouldn't make films if I could change something. I would be very afraid if I would know that I can make a film and then 1 million people change their vote next day. They would say, "Oh my God, who am I to take this responsibility?" It's and then if a film can change people or society like that, then you make a film and then next day somebody else make a film on the opposite and changes back the society. So I think it's good that films cannot change anything. But as I said, they have. It's more a descriptive medium. It's like, as I gave this metaphor with the microscope before, and it's not only a metaphor. It's like a microscope. I mean, you can use to see something. Does a microscope change the world? Well, sometimes it does change the world to better. Sometimes it changes the world to. I mean, the discovery through a microscope changes the world to bad. Sometimes it doesn't have any change, but at least, well, you can see something. Cinema can help us to see the world, to represent it, to understand it better. And well, for me, it's a lot. It's enough.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your films, and we encourage you to go on with this wonderful work you're making. And of course, you're invited. You're invited to visit Gijón anytime, and we will keep on following your steps. So thank you very much. It's been a wonderful time, and
thank
see
you,
you
Alejandro.
soon in Gijón. Bye bye.
Bye bye, coño.